Hi everyone, Cedar here, and today I want to talk about what is oiling out and why should you do it. So I'm going to start by telling you that I have a studio production checklist, a list of tasks that I have to check off for every single painting that I create before it leaves my studio. And I wrote down that list to share it with you. So first I prime my canvas, sometimes I tone the canvas, I draw my design in pencil, I block in the base colors and composition, then I add more color and details. I sign my painting when it's finished. I make sure that the edges look finished. Then I attach the hanging wire. I title my piece. I decide on the price for the piece. I record the piece in my inventory files on my computer. I write the control number on the back of the painting. Then I photograph the piece. I get several different angles, one head on, a couple from a diagonal angle, a couple detail shots, and at least one that shows the scale of the painting. Then I crop and color correct my photos and save them. I save a high-res version for when I need a high-res picture, and then I save the lower-res version for sharing online. Then I oil it out, then I varnish it, and then it's finished. So I wanted to talk to you about that second to last item on the list, which is oiling out. So I paint in both oils and acrylics. And whether it's an oil painting or an acrylic painting, I always varnish my painting. In the past with oil painting, you would have to wait about 6 months for your oil painting to be totally dry before you could varnish it. And now the science behind painting mediums and varnishes and oil paints has come so far that we can now varnish our oil paintings as soon as they're dry to the touch. Depending on your climate, humidity, and temperature, this usually takes about a week in most cases. If your painting has a very heavy impasto texture, you can test if it's dry enough to varnish by gently pressing the thickest part of the paint with your fingernail. If there's no give, then it's dry. So I varnish my paintings for two reasons. One, I think it makes the painting look better. The colors are richer and deeper, and it's just more beautiful and has a more even sheen across the whole surface of the painting. Two, varnishing protects your painting for posterity. So imagine 100 years or 200 years into the future, and you're long dead and gone, but your painting is still there. And it's been hanging for 200 years over an old fireplace. And over those 200 years, it has accumulated all the smoke from the fireplace, all the dust and dander and filth from that house over 200 years. And the colors which were once beautiful and vibrant are now dingy and gray. And whoever owns the painting wants to restore it to its original beauty. If you have not varnished your painting, all of that coat of 200 years worth of filth has bonded directly to the paint, and it's impossible to clean that layer of filth off without also removing some of the paint. We don't want that. If you have varnished your painting, you can just use a solvent to remove the layer of varnish, and then the painting will be safe underneath, and then you can clean it to its original vibrant colors and then add another coat of varnish, and it's as good as new. Okay, this brings me to the point of this video, which is any painting that you varnish, between your finished painting and the final coat of varnish, it's a good idea to add an isolation coat so that 200 years in the future, when they're removing that varnish to clean the painting, they can do so easily without accidentally damaging the paint. For an acrylic painting, your isolation coat is going to be a diluted gloss gel medium. It's usually about 2 parts gloss medium to 1 part water, but you should always, of course, read the instructions on the product you're using to make sure you're doing it correctly. On an oil painting, you want a very diluted thin coat of oil as your isolation coat. I make a 50-50 mixture of oil medium with solvent. You can apply this with a rag and rub it in to make sure it's an even thin layer. My method of choice is using a large bristle brush, and I am just careful to apply it thinly and evenly. So after you've done this isolation coat, even if you stop here and you never varnish the painting, it will be vastly more protected than if you leave it without anything on its surface. Another reason to oil out, besides using it as an isolation coat between the painting and the varnish, is that it evens out the sheen of your colors. You'll notice that some oil colors dry very shiny while others dry very matte. This is because every paint color is a mixture of a pigment and a binder. The pigment is the minerals that give you your color. The binder is oil, that's why they're called oil paints. Different pigments, the minerals and the pigments, absorb the oil at different rates. So when you notice one patch of your painting has dried matte, this is called sinking in. It's because whatever layers of pigment are under that spot on your painting have absorbed more of the oil out of the top layer, so you end up with an uneven sheen across. Oiling out once everything is dry will fix this problem by making everything look even. Then of course you want to give a few days or however long it takes for your painting to be dry to the touch again before you add the varnish. I use Gamblin's Gamvar varnish on both my oil and acrylic paintings. I like this product because one, you can apply it as soon as your oil painting is dry, as I mentioned, and two, it's, as far as varnishes go, it's relatively non-toxic. I'm very sensitive to toxic fumes, so this part is important to me. But regardless of whatever varnish you choose to use, make sure you have good ventilation in your studio. So if you're not already in the practice of varnishing all the paintings you create, or if you do varnish your paintings but you're not yet in the practice of making sure to do an isolation coat before you varnish, hopefully this will give you a reason to start adding that to your studio practice.